And we'll go ahead and do the go live on Twitch as well. This is a fun. I think we've got a fun group. I've met most everybody here. Well, I mean, Jason's here, so.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep everything sort of down here. Everyone else have fun.
That's why I love Jason, because he thinks that he's not the smartest person in the room, but then he'll come in and he'll come in and he'll lay down the wisdom, and you were just like, yeah, Jason, you got it. Like that. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
He's the one who walks away with all of our money at the end of the night.
Yep. Have I got an opportunity for you guys?
He's like, how about we make this podcast interesting?
Wait a minute. I didn't
money on it.
I didn't know I was coming into a pyramid scheme. What's happening here?
That's the best type of podcast, a pyramid scheme. That's how you know you've won.
Multi-level marketing.
All right, guys. So we're going to be selling some Herbalife. So I hope you guys are interested in our.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no.
It's the nutritional supplement of the future.
Exactly. What do you think those little cubes are in Star Trek? Just Herbalife.
Mm.
That's
a TOS reference right there. People paying attention at home.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
man.
wonder if the replicator can make Herbalife. I'm sure it can, right? Like if you record, I think it might say, no when you ask for it, but
You have to program Herbalife as something special. Otherwise, the computer doesn't know. So when you say like tea Earl Grey hot, it's just Herbalife. That's all it is.
There is 100% a Ferengi version of Herbalife.
oh my God, yeah.
Is it like Fergalife? What would Ferengi Herbalife be?
Seems like a Ferengi thing.
Well, it's like how they say synthahol was invented by the Ferengi as a way to entice the Clean Cut Federation to spend money on alcohol, but they invented the formula and leased it to the Federation. That's what I think I read.
That sounds like that's the most Ferengi sounding thing that's ever Ferengi'd. Like that's just sounds perfect.
oh my goodness.
Speaking of sounding perfect, what's up, fandom? I'm Josh, and I'm joined again by co-host Jaiden.
Oh.
We have the incomparable Jason Simpson. It's also audio. There it is. I was about to say, it's also an audio podcast, Jason.
Don't like to use my voice.
We also, coming back again, we have Aaron Waltke.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
The wonderful and tie-wearing Bill Wolkoff.
Hello. For those who are just listening, Josh and Bonnie and Jason are also wearing ties to support my tie habit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wearing my pumpkin tie, which I can really only wear 1 month out of the year. So and this is the sweet spot too this week right here. So.
I think you can get away with September.
Or no,
You're able to get away with September. Once pumpkin spice hits Starbucks and Dunkin', I think you're allowed. So I think it was September this year. So I think you're okay.
Also, pumpkin pie is huge in November. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
If anyone asks, just say it's a squash.
Yeah, if you switch out the tie clip to be like a Starbucks mug or a turkey, then I think you can get a little extra mileage out of it.
Mm-hmm.
See?
Great suggestions. The pumpkin tie is its life is extended.
Also, Bill, I don't know if you noticed, but I have a giant pumpkin behind me in my room that is up all year round that has Janeway's face on it. So pumpkins are universal. If you want, you keep the pumpkin up all year. Put it on the tie. February, great time for pumpkins,
Mm-hmm. And joining us for the first time, we have Bonnie Court.
Oh yeah, everyone's like, "Who's this weirdo?" It's me.
I do like that. It was like we're just not going to introduce Bonnie. Like Bonnie's gonna I was thinking about it. I was like, maybe we just don't. Maybe we just don't.
You know what, darling? I don't need an introduction. Just kidding. Actually, please do.
And today we're going to be talking some Star Trek because I don't know, just because it's there. One of those things that a lot of us grew up with. Nice little bit of sci-fi. Because this weekend Dune came out. So what better way to talk about Dune than us talking about Star Trek?
Oh no.
So we're gonna go around. Let's start with Bonnie first. Bonnie, what is your connection currently with the wonderful Star Trek franchises? Or franchises?
I've been connected to
franchises?
Star Trek for many, many years through the Star Trek experience in Vegas, also a couple Star Trek TTRPG shows on Geek and Sundry and other Twitch channels. However, I am now a part of Star Trek Prodigy as the voice of the ship's computer, and I'm very excited to be official Trek canon.
That's true. You're the heir apparent to Majel Barrett.
Acknowledged.
There you go. Spoiler, everybody. You just got a sneak peek. What about you, Aaron? What do you do?
So I am, I've always liked Bonnie. The Trek has been sort of part of my life for pretty much as long as I can remember. But I'm currently the co-EP and head writer on Star Trek Prodigy, and I was a writer producer on the first season, and that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Nice. And showrunner of our hearts, because if you make a mistake on Twitter, you can't edit it, so they need to put an edit button on there so Josh doesn't look like an idiot when he posts.
I was about to say congratulations on the promotion, Aaron.
You never know. I'm putting that out there for you.
To be
Hagemans
fair,
are out. Aaron's in.
To be fair, I am an animation showrunner as well, just not on Star Trek at the moment. I'm just executive producing. So,
just.
And Bill, who wears ties, what you doing?
Well, I am a very lucky Star Trek nerd who has been a fan of the show his whole life, and now am getting to write for it on a upcoming show called Strange New Worlds. I'm one of the writer producers on this show, which I can say absolutely nothing about on this podcast.
Well, that's the big
talk
thing.
About all other things Star Trek, and but not probably anything about the show that I'm actually working on.
That's going to be it for everything. We're not really going to you're not going to get any Prodigy stuff here, guys. Sorry, you're not going to get any Strange New World stuff. We're just going to talk Star Trek in general. Bill, if I send you a couple copies of Hell on Wheels, can you get Ansem to sign those for me? That would be pretty baller. I'm not going to lie.
I think that could be arranged. I think he would be excited about that too. He is very responsive to people who made him who he is. So that's I think that can happen. He seems
super fun. He seems super fun.
He was a nice guy. I spoke with him very briefly at Star Trek Day, and he was top notch. So if he doesn't sign your Hell on Wheels scripts, then I don't know what to tell you. It's
just like he doesn't like you.
Oh no!
That's how you know Ansem Mao doesn't care. He's like, I'm not gonna sign you Hell on Wheels stuff.
I have a quick signing of something, star signing something aside, not Anson involved, and I will also echo everybody's praise of Anson. He's awesome, and he is our captain. So I'll say that about, to the crew. Spoilers. But I will say that about him. I just a quick story. My favorite getting something signed story. One of my when I first moved out here, two of my friends worked on Muppets Tonight, this story has nothing to do with Star Trek except for one thing, and it's even tangential to the story, which is tangential to everything. Muppets Tonight was one of the producers and writers and puppeteers in that show was Kirk Thatcher, who plays the punk in Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home, who gives Spock and Kirk the finger and get blah blah blah. Anyways, but that has nothing to do with this story. My friend who was a PA on it said, "Hey Bill, Jason Alexander is the guest star this week," and I said, "Oh my God, I'm a huge musical theater nerd, and I have an original record of Merrily We Roll Along. Could you get him to sign it for me? And he is like, what? Yeah, okay. So he went to the ADs and said, can Jason sign this? And apparently Jason Alexander flipped out that somebody knew that he was in Merrily We Roll Along and wanted to sign it. So I got a great signature, and the days before, camera phones, a very effusive Jason Alexander that went unrecorded apparently. But all that to say, Josh, I do think maybe Anson would be excited to sign your
Way to segue.
Well, I mean,
I love that roundabout tangent in order to get there, because that is what this whole entire podcast is. It's just tangents. That's what we do 90% of the time. Ask Jason. He would tell you
Jason Alexander is now officially, twice now. He's making a return to Star Trek. He was on an episode of Voyager called Think Tank, and now he has officially joined the cast of Prodigy as Dr. Noam.
Yeah,
so
cool.
It is not a non sequitur. It is fully related to Star Trek.
Fun fact: he's also a magician and a member of the Magic Castle, which is how I know him. So who doesn't love Jason Alexander, and also Jason Simpson, our amazing other Jason.
That's a segue.
Plenty of people.
That was my segue. I'm just gonna segue away this way.
Well, let's go ahead and kind of get started.
You want to know my connection to Star Trek?
Not particularly. No, yeah, Jason, what you got?
Well, I once did a show called Beyond Belief with Jonathan Frakes 20 years ago.
Were you a fact or a fiction?
I was a fact.
Thank you for the beautiful pause there.
I had to remember. I played a murderer. Anyway, my second one, I was doing a Western, and I went into wardrobe, and the lovely lady who was fitting me said, "You have the largest head in the world." Now, one of my bucket list items is to play a Klingon. I have had that since I was a child. And I went in for wardrobe the next day, and she said, "I have a hat for you." And this was worn by the only other person I know that has a head this big, Michael Dorn. And so I kind of thought, this is 2 for 1. My two bucket lists, be a cowboy and be a Klingon. And I kind of, I got the same hat as Michael Dorn. So I was pretty stoked about that.
There we go.
Some Dorn sweat on my head.
I mean, and Dorn sweat is more than likely Ridge sweat. So, I mean, you probably got a little bit on there.
Mm-hmm.
This was when he was actually Michael Dorn and not a Klingon.
You could probably clone that, use that for...
Yeah. Sell that. Do you still have access to that hat? Sell that puppy on eBay?
Stole it. I've tasted it. I smelled it. I scraped it off. No.
Let's kind of go. We're going to deep dive now. So let's kind of go everybody's first experiences with Star Trek. So I'm going to make you, dig deep into that memory. So have fun there. Let's start, Jaiden. What was your first experience with Star Trek?
I feel like out of everybody here, I'm probably the one that's been into it the shortest amount of time. I got into Star Trek a little later on, like in my early 20s. And it was me and my best friend. We bonded over it because we just love sci-fi and space. And we started watching the original series, and we would call each other like our Kirk to our Spock, like I was Spock to her Kirk. And we got into that and The Next Generation. So I haven't seen every single Star Trek series. I've mostly just seen the first 2, and the most recent ones, the one I've really come to love is Discovery. I'm so into Discovery, and Picard as well, because of their ties to the original and The Next Generation, and of course Lower Decks. Super into Lower Decks, love that one. But so mine is a little bit more recent than everybody else's, but it's kind of how I'm super connected to my best friend.
Nice. Bill, what about you?
Well, I think I'm a little bit older than Jaiden. So mine goes back to the original series. I wasn't, I didn't watch it when the original series was originally airing. I'm not quite that old, but I original series was in repeats when I was in grade school. And I think my first discovery of it was seeing it in syndication, and also in our school library there were a ton of novelizations of episodes, and I started reading those and getting really into it. And then I started watching it on TV, and people who have seen the original series will know at the end of a lot of the episodes you see a Balak head. It's like the last credit. This is Balak.
I saw it behind
There's
you.
a Balak head right there. And I was obsessed with seeing the episode where Balak appeared.
Yes.
And I mean, and I enjoyed what I was watching, but I was like, so I could not miss a single Star Trek because I didn't want to miss the one where I finally got to see Balak. And this was before, long before the internet, long before you could easily look that up. Like, what's the green-headed alien on Star Trek? So I had no idea what it was. I just knew that this alien was going to appear. And finally, the Corbomite maneuver came on, and when I found out, sorry, spoiler if you haven't seen it, but the episode aired.
Yeah, the episode aired like
very, very long time
50
ago.
something years ago, or 60 years ago. It's been a bit.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler. Balak is not a giant, like big-headed alien. He's actually a strange, like child adult alien played by Clint Howard. But when that blew my mind, because I had this big expectation, and they totally got me, and I was in on the series after that. And then the first movie I saw was Wrath of Khan, and I got to see that in theaters when it came out, and was utterly gutted and devastated. And like I remember going to school on the bus the weekend after it opened, and all these other kids were devastated that Spock was dead. Anyway, so that was the
Spoilers!
beginning of again, another spoiler.
40 years old.
We have to put a spoiler warning at the top of this. If you haven't seen any Star Trek whatsoever, don't listen to this.
Why are you watching this? I'm just kidding.
So that was the beginning of my relationship with the show, and I've gone on to consume all of the. I have some blind spots. There's some shows that I haven't seen as much of. I have a little bit of a Voyager blind spot. I need to see. I have not seen all of Voyager, but that's the one. And Enterprise, I have a little bit of a blind spot too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some gaps in my knowledge there, but most of the series I've consumed it all. And anyways, blah blah blah. That's the one.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. You're good. What about you, Jason?
Yeah, the original. I watched that as a child, and I too saw that image when I was a kid, and when I was sneaking Star Trek because my parents didn't like it, I would sneak it, and that would come on, and I'd see that face, and I was so intrigued but also terrified. And it was a bit of a letdown when you found out who he actually was. And then seeing, I went and saw The Search for Spock in the theaters. My dad gave in and took me, and seeing Torg and Krug. I mean, they're Klingons. John Larroquette played, I believe,
right.
Krug.
Yeah.
Was it Torg was his name? That might have been.
Torg. He played Torg, and then of course Christopher Lloyd. And I thought, I want to be those guys. And that's kind of where that started. And then, of course, 4 came out, and 5 and 6 and so on and so forth. But that's where I was hooked, really. I have not seen the motion picture all the way through. And
Really?
Yeah.
The best part is the ending.
That's the part I missed. Yeah, I don't know why. I've had this sort of something keeps telling me I should watch it, but I kind of like that I haven't. There's a mystery there. And,
That's fair.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
I will say, probably some of the comfiest looking outfits in Star Trek, I would say, were the motion picture. That white short sleeve that Kirk and Uhura wear. I'm like, oh my gosh, that seems so comfy. Like, it's got those cool, like, rolled up little, things on the sleeve. I'm like, oh, those cuffs look nice.
And they have belts that don't like future
I don't
belts.
know. Yeah, it's like, what is that? It's like a fanny
function.
pack looking thing, and I'm like, what do you do with this? Is
In
that
my-
your communicator?
Yeah,
Like-
in my unspoken headcanon, it had some technological benefit to it, sort of like the flash ring that he wore actually contained his super suit that he could put on really fast. Like I thought maybe it was something like that, where it was a communicator, or he could turn it to the right, and it's like the fire the photon torpedoes in an emergency situation.
I also like that, like everybody in that, except I think Kirk is the only one with like an actual like metal emblem. Everybody else, it's just like the little patch. And I'm like,
They ran out of metal.
they were like, we can only make one. We got to
Yeah.
give it to one person. Better give it to the Admiral. Everybody else gets a patch. I guess I'll go. My first intro into Star Trek was I walked in and my mom was crying at the end of Wrath of Khan when I was a wee child and I didn't understand. And then we watched Search for Spock right after that, after she kind of explained why she was crying. And that kind of got me, hooked into Star Trek. So then we watched everything else after that. And then I got into TOS because that was the only Star Trek that I knew. I had only known Kirk and Spock and everything like that. My uncle, who used to run one of the only like Star Trek conventions in the state of Oklahoma, he had a whole box of those, the Next Generation like VHS. And there was like those gray VHS tape that had like 2 episodes on each one. And so he had like, I don't know, maybe like 40 or those things. So like I watched all of those. I met my best friend Oliver. Like we went to school together and we would act out scenes from like Next Gen and the movies on the bleachers at school, just because we were the only 2 losers that were into Star Trek at the time. So it was like, yeah, let's do it. Like the Klingon bastards killed my son. We would just like do all kinds of this stuff at the top, and just where no one could see us, and it was amazing. So that's like some of my first memories with that. And I'm actually currently on a watch through of everything again. So I'm going to go TOS and then the animated and the next. So we're doing a whole thing, and there's a lot of those. It's weird, just like the way Amazon Prime has it. They have like the remastered stuff on there for TOS. So it's really bizarre watching, more updated graphics and animation,
Right.
and then it switches to 66, and you're like, that was jarring. Like it gets weird sometimes.
Yeah, there's a part of me that wishes they could have maybe just kept the janky 1960s stuff, but somehow scanned it to be high res. But I think just the way that the special effects were made back then, they were like, it's on 4:3. Nobody's ever going to watch this on anything more complicated than this. And, reruns didn't really exist at the time. So they were like, it's just going to be on the air once and done. So nobody's going to.
No one will see this string,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's why, like, if you sorry, Josh, but like that's why if you look at some of the fights in the original series, you can clearly see the stunt doubles. Like if in Space Seed, and the fight between Khan and Kirk at the end, it is so evident. But like in the 60s, they're like, well, nobody's gonna be freeze framing this and looking at this like the resolution, so it didn't matter. And like that's one of those things that's hard to fix. I mean,
it's very apparent in Where No Man Has Gone Before when Kirk and Gary Mitchell are fighting each other. I was watching that and I was like, this is,
who are they?
These are 2 completely different people.
Oh.
One of them has a different haircut. Like,
I think Kirk's okay. He's not even in this scene. Yeah.
this poor crewman's getting beaten up.
Oh my
gosh. Bonnie, what about you?
So my intro to Star Trek was a little different than most, because I hadn't really watched it growing up. Sometimes it was on around my house, and I remember seeing Next Gen, and I loved Whoopi Goldberg, so I was like, oh my gosh, I love her in this. Look at that hat, Guinan, awesome. But I didn't really know Star Trek, and then I was living in Vegas, and I auditioned for the Star Trek experience to be one of the actors. And I'm a huge, fantasy sci-fi fan. So I was like, okay, I get the gist. I can BS my way through this audition. It was almost all improv, and I had to pretend like I knew what I was talking about. And if you don't know Star Trek, when you're trying to talk Star Trek, people can tell, especially when they're, doing it. So I auditioned and I got hired, but the team leader was like, you got to watch Star Trek. you gotta start, you're playing a Starfleet officer. You got to know what you're saying. If something happens and people are asking you questions, you have to be able to talk to them. And I'm like, yeah, no problem. It's gonna, I don't want to ruin the prime directive. Like, I won't say anything, whatever. So I started watching Star Trek, and that's what got me hooked. So I kind of got a really cool introduction to Star Trek, because not only was I watching it, but as I was watching it and getting to learn the characters and getting to know the world, every day I was going and putting on a Starfleet uniform and walking the bridge and like talking to Commander Riker on a screen. And Geordi LaForge was telling me to, get them to the shuttle bay and, just all this thing. So I was just like, I am Star Trek, as I was watching it. And then of course, once I it closed down in Vegas, I was part of the closing cast and moved to LA, and then I just started watching everything. I went back to the original series and I almost knocked down my Prodigy mug. Shameless plug. As I almost crash it to the ground. But yeah, I just went through everything and devoured Star Trek very quickly. And now, I'm in a comedy band that writes parodies about Star Trek. Speaking of Klingons, we have a song to Aerosmith's Dream On, and it's like, Klingon, Klingon. It's all about the Klingon nation. So the Empire, if you want to give it a listen, I'll send it to you.
Please do.
That's
That
amazing.
sounds awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It sounds like your introduction to Star Trek was almost like studying abroad, just like almost immersive studying. Like you literally entered the bridge.
That's exactly what the Star Trek experience was too. We had a Quarks, so we had Ferengi in the gift shop haggling prices with tourists. We had Klingons and Andorians and Ferengi walking around the restaurant, like sitting down with people. Like the Klingons would sit down as they were eating their dinner and being like, what is this, blood wine? And I mean, it was just so much fun. So I got introduced to Star Trek a very different way than most, because I was surrounded by it, and I was, having to interact with all these different alien actors, and we were all improvising and having a great time. It was such a fun job.
Question.
Yes.
What iteration was it that you were playing? What series?
So they have two different sides of the Star Trek experience. They had a side that was Next Generation based, which is the side I was the most on. They put the girls a lot on that side. I think it's because it was the tighter uniforms. They were like, oh, we can't have showgirls in this production, but at least we can have the tight spandex outfits. And then they had another side that was kind of Voyager based and DS9 based, where the Doctor was scanning everyone, and then the Borg attacked, and Janeway came with Voyager. To save the day and like attack the Borg Queen. It was really interesting. It was really fun. We had Borg walking around. It was interesting.
Has who was able to go to Star Trek the Experience when it was in the beautiful Hilton?
Yeah. Has anyone ever done it?
I did it.
It's actually a huge regret of mine, because when did it close down? Like
2008.
2008.
I moved to LA right after it closed.
Yeah, exactly. See, that's the thing. Is like, it was in Vegas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I moved to LA in 2007, and then I had not. It didn't strike me as like, Vegas is just 5 hours away. I could just drive there. I didn't realize it was close enough. And then by the time it was gone. So I was like, well, I'll just wait for the next one. And here we are in 2021.
No.
It was such a cool thing, because you had the museum aspect that you would walk through first, and you would get to look at all the uniforms and some of the props and stuff. And then you would get in and actually get on like the transporter. It was very much like something kind of like the beginning of like the experience thing in like at a Disney type of thing, where you kind of walk through the stuff, and then it's really fun. What's up, Jaiden?
So one thing, even though the experience is gone, I just remembered, it may not be the same thing, but I could have sworn I heard somewhere that there is an optometrist like office that's Star Trek themed. I think somewhere in Southern
Yeah, that's on
California.
Trekkies.
Yeah.
Yes,
Like
that's as soon as you said that, I was like, why does that sound so familiar? It's in the documentary Trekkies. You're right.
Mm,
Yes.
Is that in
Ah.
LA?
I don't know.
I don't know if it's
We
in
would
LA,
have to
but I
watch
think it's
Trekkies
somewhere
again.
in Southern California. Yeah. It's somewhere here.
It's not quite the same. I mean, this was like a full on, you'd walk through, you'd get transported into the transporter room. There'd be a Starfleet officer there. I would get in trouble because it was like an ongoing show. So it was like a revolving show. Like a group of tourists would come through, they'd get transported. I would walk them to the bridge, and then the bridge actors would take them through the rest. Then they'd get into a turbo lift, go down to the turbo lift, go down to the shuttle bay. Then when you got on the shuttle for the shuttle bay, that was the ride. So I mean, it was like an interactive show before, and we'd be rotating roles. So I played a bunch of different characters throughout. But whenever I was in the transporter room, it was like to keep myself busy. Every time a new group of tourists would get transported to me, I would change my accent and try and like break the actor who was like their tour guide. And I got in trouble a few times because I do something like, you're no longer in the year 2008. You're in the future. And they would be like, that is not. They're like, Bonnie, you can't do that. And I was like, why not?
If
was like-
Picard's British accent and Scotty's Scottish accent survive, why not a Minnesotan accent?
Yeah, I mean, the Midwest still exists in the Federation. Am I right? So it was fun, but I would just change my accent every time. And when management found out, they're like, maybe you should just stick to one and not that one. I'm like, okay.
Bones is an old country doctor.
I went back to
Canadians can't be in space,
Oh, sure.
no.
I have one question about the Star Trek experience. I never got to go to it.
Okay.
Bonnie, the crazy thing about Vegas to me is that you can smoke inside everywhere. And like that's like kind of this. It's a standout in our country. Like that's like the last place where you can do that. Could you smoke inside of the Star Trek experience?
No one's smoking on the bridge, Bill. Not on my watch. Don't you worry. No, actually, I think once you went through, you couldn't smoke. I mean, it was
might damage the props.
There was a lot of actors in the show that would smoke, and we had to wear like special frocks and special type of things if ever we went outside or to eat, because the costumes were made like by Paramount. They were really nice. Yeah. And some of them were in like full-on Klingon armor, but they had to go smoke a cigarette, and they would be wearing like these ridiculous robes and frocks and yeah,
like
they'd be wearing
Klingons
like
on
little,
spa day.
Yeah, like little like pink frilly robes with a cigarette of the Klingon. Those are the pictures I wish I had.
It was really cool because like whenever you stayed at the Hilton, you would get like a full like day pass to like the experience, so you could go unlimited amount of time. So like, you could go throughout the day, and that's what I did. So it would be funny. So you would go in like in the morning, and like someone would be playing an ensign, and then they'd be a captain at the end of the day, and you'd be like, "Look at that promotion! Good for you! I'm glad like it got promoted faster than Harry Kim for sure. Went from like ensign to captain in like an afternoon, and I'm like, good for you."
Well, I'm 35 now, but when I was there, I was a lot younger, so I look really young, and so they couldn't let me play all the parts because no one would believe that I was past a lieutenant, junior lieutenant. So I was mostly just like Ensign Thomas and ensign, they had different ensign names, and so I never got above a pip. I was just like,
Is there anything more denigrating in the command chain system of Star Trek than lieutenant junior grade?
Yeah.
Right?
It's the only one that has junior in there.
Yeah.
That's just the black pip too, right? It's like you don't even get a full gold. You just get a black pip with like a little gold circle around it, and it's like, oh.
They could have just said like lieutenant second class.
Yeah, or like you're ensign and a half. It's like
lieutenant junior grade. You're part of the Lil Spock and Kirk club.
Aaron, what about you? How did you first get into the Trekness?
Yeah, I mean, literally one of my first sense memories I have is I was a child of the 80s. So I remember sitting on the couch with my dad and watching television, and it was very exciting. And I was watching the Battle Bridge separate the saucer separate from the secondary hull, and the music fanfare was flourishing. And years later, I realized I was watching the premiere of Star Trek: The Next Generation live back in September 23rd, 1987, and that's like one of my first memories I have as a human. And so after that, it was pretty much nonstop for me. Like I was hooked to TNG, and then the summers I would spend, I was sort of a latchkey kid, and my aunt, when she was babysitting me, she would only let me watch PBS, but PBS at the time, my station had TOS, basically wall to wall. So I was like, 7 years old and watching like Patterns of Force. I'm like, holy shit, they're fighting Nazis, and Gangster Planet, hell yeah, and so I kind of got that organic sort of education of the fundamentals that way. And then going into high school, my local Fox affiliate started playing, a few months after the fact, like all of Deep Space Nine daily, right when I got home from school. So basically, I got into DS9 a little bit later because I was sort of a TNG hardcore fan for such a long time. And then I started watching that just to kind of, there's just nothing else. So I basically got to binge watch all of DS9 chronologically in order before there was even a word for that. So all the criticisms that I heard later that were like, from fans that were just like, oh, it's not real Star Trek, it's so slow. It takes, if you miss one episode, you're lost, and basically everything that does not apply to serialized TV now because they were so far to the ahead of the curve. So I was like, what are you talking about? I just watched it all in a row and it was great. So that very quickly became my favorite of them. And then, yeah, after that, I watched Voyager, and then I went up to college, and I tapered off a little bit as a lot of people did with Enterprise. But then, I watched all the films, all the movies. I think I don't think any of the Star Trek movies are rated R, but I think before I was 13, my dad was taking me to the Star Trek, the PG-13 Star Trek movies.
Star Trek 4 is definitely rated R. Those whales are like really intense.
Yeah,
that's my favorite Star Trek movie. That's my favorite one.
It's actually really delightful. I rewatched it.
It's so good. It's hysterical. I laugh so hard.
It's a tremendously well written, like fish out of water sort of sci-fi comedy. Like it's eminently quotable. Just hello, computer.
That's my favorite. It's
double dumbass on you. It's all great.
There be whales here is just like
Admiral.
There be whales
here.
Like that's. Thank you for that. Oh man. Okay, so Aaron brought up a good point. So really digging the DS9. So what's everybody's favorite iteration of Star Trek?
Oh, why'd you dig this?
Oh yeah, no, we're doing it.
Why'd you cut me so deep?
Hard.
Can I say Star Trek Prodigy?
No, it's technically not.
Okay.
When this airs, episode 1 will be out, but technically, as of right now, it's not. So I don't think we can say that.
It will be.
It
You just wait and see.
Oh man!
I guess I gotta answer. I know. I really have to think. Okay.
I know.
I mean, I really do find that I love all of them in one way or another. Next Generation was my introduction to Trek, so it's always going to be the one I think nearest and dearest to my heart. And I'm a huge Data fan, so he's just such a great character. One of my all-time favorite characters of all of Trek. But I mean, Janeway's my favorite captain, so it gets hard. It gets hard. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It just gets hard. You can't. I love different aspects of all, so I wish I could just kind of mash them all together and make a little blender of like, this is my favorite. But I guess I will have to say Next Generation because it was the one that got me hooked, and it's the one that I'm also a huge Sherlock Holmes fan, so they had so many fun little holodeck adventures, and yeah.
Yeah.
And Q's. I could go on. I'm just gonna stop now, though. Someone else talk.
Let's go ahead. We'll wrap favorite captain into the question too. So we'll just get both of those band-aids just like ripped off at the same time. I'm pretty much the same, Bonnie. Like Janeway, my favorite captain for sure. And I loved Voyager so much. but
Mhm.
I think I would have to say TNG as well. But I'm also, it's weird too, because like those first like 2 to 3 seasons of Enterprise, I think are still that's some really good TV. Like that's some really good Star Trek. And I think what Lower Decks is doing is really good too. It's like,
I love Discovery too.
oh,
I
Discovery's
love
really
Discovery.
good. Like I'm loving what Lower Decks is doing with like, we're gonna do Star Trek, but we're not gonna do it like super serious. And
Yeah.
I'm really loving it.
Ensign Tilly, man, she's me if I was in Starfleet. Like honestly, as soon as that show came out, I was just like, well, there's my role. Goodbye, Ensign Tilly. That everything about it is just perfect. It's so funny. They're such a great ensemble cast. Anyway, I'm talking again.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
mute
hey,
me.
that's fine.
You can.
Like,
do you have powers to mute me? You should just mute me.
I could, but I'm not going to. That's
Okay. I get so excited. It's like I chugged a Red Bull or something. Go on.
As we're all talking, I'm realizing that like part of what I like so much about Star Trek is that it gets better as it goes on. Like the series, each new series tries different new bold things and builds on itself. But I will say, by the way, that puts so much pressure on us as artists working on it. I'm like, oh my God, we've got to be as good as everybody that came before us.
Yeah.
So talk about fear of imposter syndrome there. But I think most of my favorite episodes are Deep Space Nine episodes. But I'm probably going to say Next Gen is my favorite out of all of them. I mean, and it's so like it's hard to and I love the fucking original series so much. It's hard to say that, but I'm going to say Next Generation because the All Good Things, the series finale, I think is probably one of my favorite episodes of television ever. And it's hard for me to beat for that. I feel like that is one of the best series finales I've ever seen. I as a writer, I just worship that episode so much. And it speaks so much to the whole series because, it has the original pilot in it, and it takes place in the present. So, but it also is about the present and it's, addressing what the future is going to be. It's like, it's so good. So it really brings out the best of Next Generation for me. So I guess I'm going to go with that. And I as I said, I just got a little burned out on Trek by the time Voyager was on. So I didn't give it its due when it came out. And now that I'm watching it and discovering it, I love Janeway and I love that show too.
This is really like
I'm being
Sophie's
non-committal.
choice. No, this is really like Sophie's choice. It's like, what do you do? It's like, but wait, I don't want to give this one up, but I love that one too.
Yeah, well, I think that's the great thing about Star Trek is that it's been going on for so long, and it is such a legacy that there's a little bit of something for everybody. And even in each series, even if you don't like certain TOS episodes, like I don't like the military, Corbinite maneuver type episodes. Well, then you have trouble with triples. Like every season, every series contains multitudes, and you'll find what you like. And sometimes it comes down to just what your gateway into the series was. Sometimes it comes down to, which show just happened to have the most types of episodes that you like, or your favorite characters or what have you. I think for me, like Deep Space Nine, I like it just because in terms of just sheer character work, and also as somebody who's a bit of a world building junkie, the fact that Berman and his crew were starting to make all of these connections to these other shows and other movies and building out this multiverse before we really had a word like that for what you do in television. So Deep Space Nine was in my mind sort of like the hub at the center that was kind of connecting it all together, because you had at the beginning you had Picard basically giving Cisco his commission, and then in the pilot of Voyager, they're launching from Deep Space Nine, and the Dominion War obviously made it one of the most important focal points of the whole in universe sort of theatrics. And I think just it had so many interesting characters on it that, from every character in Deep Space Nine was just a banger top to bottom. I think you could probably say the same thing for TNG as well. I personally never was like a huge Barclay fan, but even Barclay has like diehard Barclay.
That's what I'm gonna name my dog if I ever get a dog, Lieutenant Barclay.
Barclay. As far as like my favorite captain goes, I think it's hard to beat Space Dad, Jean-Luc Picard. But Voyager, Janeway is also, I think she did what I think is a almost impossible job. There's so much expectation of this first series female captain, and she was able to straddle that line. I guess I'm speaking more to Kate Mulgrew than Janeway, but the character that she embodied was able to hit that sort of toughness, but also that sort of that warmth, but also giving it a little bit of sass. Like a little bit of that Kirk sass that you don't get with Picard, but the toughness that you get with a Sisko, she kind of embodies all of it as need be. And I think that the fact she was able to tap dance and pull it off in a character that doesn't feel scattered, but actually feels cohesive is truly impressive. So Picard and Janeway is my short answer.
Sorry, real quick, just in the chat, Ashlon brought up a really good point. Captain Fraser, Kelsey Grammer as captain of that one. Was that yesterday's
Bozeman,
Enterprise?
Right? Was he Captain Bozeman, or was he the captain of the Bozeman?
I think he was the captain of the Bozeman.
Right.
So I don't think he had a full name, but I think that's great. And then whoever that captain was in Search for Spock with the riding crop, the captain of the Excelsior, what a loser guy.
I think I have to agree as well. The Next Generation is also one of my favorites, but I'm going to cheat a little bit and say that it's like a tie between Next Generation and Discovery. I really love Discovery, and the main reason why is because I haven't seen all of the iterations of Star Trek, but out of the few that I have seen, I think Discovery is the one where I was the most invested in between the relationships between the characters. Like, I love like the mother-daughter relationship between Georgiou and Michael. I love like the first commander, first commander acting captain relationship between Saru and Michael, the friendship between Michael and Tilly. Like, there's so many great relationships between the characters, and like my heart with little queer family with like Stamets and like
great representation. Yes.
Oh,
Anthony Rapp, so he's wonderful.
Yes. And I don't know if this counts because he was like acting captain, but I really love Saru. I love how this was
Saru is great.
Yeah.
Yes, he was a brand new species introduced in that series, and seeing him go through the motions of being more assertive and kind of growing out of the mold of his species, the expectations of him being like cold and stuff and coming into that leadership role was just so satisfying to see. So I really love Saru as a captain figure.
Definitely.
Jaiden, you bring up a great point. Like, what's so cool about this whole franchise is that you get moments where there are acting captains, and you get to see how some side characters operate in the chair. Like in original series Galileo 7, you get to see Spock being, a captain, and all of the issues that brings up. And
he was kind of bad at it.
Yeah.
I have a song about that too. Now you got the bridge, Spock. Kirk is away.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like I remember Galileo 7, Spock was just, his main thing was like, well, he's dead. There's nothing we can do about it. Emotions are irrelevant. And they're like, and they're like, we have to get his body. And he's like, that is illogical. No.
Yeah.
You've got to say something at his funeral. You're the captain.
That is a waste of oxygen and resources.
That's a waste of life support.
I think first impressions go a long way, and Kirk had such a big, in the original series, had such a big impression on me that I have, I'm Kirk is my captain. I mean, seeing, I think it was probably Balance of Terror when I was a kid, and seeing like the chess game that he was playing with the Romulan captain, and how they had this mutual respect for each other, but they never actually saw each other or talked to each other. I was like, wow, I hope I can be that good at some point in my life, that just by decisions I make, somebody, in a room, thousands of feet away is like, well, that guy's awesome. Like, that just, that heart, that still stays with me. But there's, there's so many great captains who have occupied that chair in different ways. And it doesn't diminish like how I feel about the other ones. I love all of them, but it's hard, like Tom Baker was my first doctor. Kirk was my first captain.
Yeah. Before we go to Jason, I think Kirk is the best captain whenever he wears that cool green wraparound.
Oh God.
Whenever he wears that, I'm like, that's my captain. Well, like,
you mean the tunic that he wore when he started to get a little wide in the waist?
Well, I mean,
and the yellow shirt didn't quite fit him.
He wore that in Charlie X too, which is like the first episode, and I'm just which is cool too, because like Charlie wears one as well, but it's a gold one, same design, and has the little emblem on the side, and I'm like, whatever happened to that? I've not seen it since. I think when they took him away, I think that was it. That was where they took they're like, if I would Kirk, I've been like, that's my jacket.
He probably stole it from set. Yeah, he's like, this is mine now.
Probably. I mean, just like, this is mine. Jason, what about you?
Yeah, Janeway's. Aaron said it all. She's this combo of these different captains. Not to say that she didn't make that her own, of course. She did, and she just had this great power, and she was. It was just such such an appeal to her. Cisco was tough and just so cool, right? He was coming off of Spencer as Hawk, and I mean, that was, as a kid, that was I just loved this cool guy who always wore sunglasses, no matter if he was outside, inside, and I always wanted to see Cisco, just wearing shades all the time. Favorite, of course. I mean, there's nostalgia for TOS and TNG, but I love Discovery. I love Klingons, and I love what they did with the Klingons, with Glenn Hetrick and their new design for the Klingons. And then as we got into season 2 and 3, and that started to change, and we got so much story and so much relationship. I just sort of fell for that really hard. So I love that. If I had to spend time, if someone said, Jason, you have 2 hours to spend with Star Trek, what are you going to do? I would watch The Undiscovered Country, because that was just so, Christopher Plummer as Chang and David Warner, the assassination of Gorkin. I mean, it was such a great story. And there was such great action in there. And is it Commander? No, is he Commander Worf? No, he's Colonel Worf. No.
That was Worf's grandfather, I think?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And just, I mean, it's
from the House of Moog.
That's right. It's such good storytelling. So I love that movie. That's probably my favorite of all of them. So
I really do want to have a Law and Order TV show that takes place inside that courtroom. And instead of the chung chung, they have that giant thing, like that metal thing. Smash that twice.
Chung chung. And that giant light from that's very
Nuke deck.
Bam bam.
Oh man. What is something from Star Trek that was maybe like either in a movie or like in like maybe like a 1 episode thing that you want to see more of? Like, has there ever been anything? Like, for me, I'm like, I think we should bring back Deltons, because I mean, they were in the motion picture, and then we don't really do anything with them. I guess it kind of evolves into like Betazoids. I guess if we think about that kind of is how that kind of goes. But I'm like, man, we should get more Deltons and stuff. I'm all for those.
I have an answer for this.
I think it would be so much fun.
You know what species I want to see more of? Kzinti, because they're never done. They're like, like the cousin race of the Caitians. kind of like what Romulans are to Vulcans. They're like the warrior cat race. And
from the animated series, right?
Well, in the novels. And I on a Star Trek TTRPG show that I was on, I played the chief medical officer that was a Cation. This was before Lower Decks. I didn't like steal that trope, but my secret was that I was actually half Kzinti, and I was like kind of hiding like my warrior rage side of things, and she was actually like a really badass fighter and could do all kinds of cool things, but I kind of hid that side of myself and I throughout the show. But it was really fun to reveal that later, but no one knows anything about Kzintis, so I've done like a lot of research on their language, the god that they worship. Their culture is very like horrible to females, but it's really interesting, and I'd like to see them explore that. And Lower Decks just recently had a crew member that was a Kzinti, and I got so excited when I saw that. I freaked out. I was thrilled. I was like, oh my gosh, we've made it. Kzintis are in Starfleet. We did the thing.
That was the Red Shirts episode, right?
Right,
Yeah.
where they were like part of the command club. Yeah.
Mhm. I love that.
We call ourselves the Red Shirts.
Yeah.
Are you guys sure you wanna go with that? That was
Yeah. But yeah, that's my answer, I guess.
Sorry, real quick, one last one. I think it would be interesting to delve into when like the first like Federation people, because I mean, like it's been a while since they've had to deal with any sort of like money. Like I want to know the first time that any sort of like Federation person like from Earth like had to deal with like gold press latinum and be like, I don't know what is this? Like my thing's gold. Does this count? Like could I barter with this? Like that would be like, can you barter with pips? Is that something you could do?
Well, they kind of do that a little bit in the first couple seasons of Voyager when they're stranded way out in the Delta Quadrant, when the Kazon don't have replicator technology and they're bartering with them, just saying like, hey, what if we just gave you some water? It's super easy for us. And that became a huge bargaining chip for them. But yeah, I would love to explore that more, especially those early days, because even though it feels like we filled in a lot of the Star Trek sort of canon, there are big gaps between like what we see in First Contact, where it's like basically a post-nuclear like almost like village, like a wasteland village that just happens to have a nuclear silo that Sephram Cochrane used to launch the Phoenix or whatever. And then you suddenly jump forward to Enterprise, which was supposed to be 70 years later. And then they're like, oh yeah, we built the starship and we're gonna
let's do the thing.
Yeah. But then there's a gap after that, obviously, to TOS. So I feel like there's lots of space. And then there's, the Bozeman or whatever. There's a lot of people want to see the adventures of the Enterprise B for sure.
Yeah. My buddy Oliver in the chat also said that we need some Breen in the new series. And I'm like, that would be cool. It brings the Breen in. That would be cool. Jaiden, I interrupted you earlier.
It's okay. I guess kind of piggybacking off of what Bonnie said, with exploring different races of aliens that we haven't seen too much of, I think it would be really cool to explore more mixed race characters, especially some that are very opposite. Like, can you imagine like a half Vulcan, half Betazoid character? Like, how would they navigate themselves? Because Betazoids feel everything, and Vulcans feel nothing at all. So I want to see something like that, like two very polar opposite parts of a character and how they have to navigate and like how they go throughout their life.
A Klingon Bolian. Yeah.
Well, it looks like Discovery is starting to explore that in the new season too. They just released some of the I think the current president of Earth is like part Bajoran, part Cardassian, I think. Or
Oh yeah.
Or that's what it looks like in her makeup design.
Yeah.
That's a straight up House Divided right there.
I forgot to say, they did mention Kzintis in Picard as well. Season 1, very briefly. Like, what was it? Riker, when they were putting up the security and it went off, he was like, oh, we've had trouble with the Kzinti around these parts. I freaked out because I had the subtitles on. I went, they exist.
Yeah, that was when he was making that was when he was making Space Rabbit pizza in the backyard.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I'm just so excited about Kzinti.
My answer to this question is, and I hope this doesn't steal any of Aaron's thunder, because Aaron had an amazing tweet about this about a year ago, but Lower Decks kind of explored something I'm just so glad they explored in the season finale. We finally got to see 2 members from the Cetacean Ops deck.
Yes.
I think Matt and Kaluma were their names. And I want to see a lot more of them and a lot more of Cetacean Ops.
Yeah.
So that was you know, I deeply love Lower Decks. I think I want to give true admiration to everybody who makes it, because it succeeds both as a comedy, as a very comedy forward animated show, and it is also just as much a Star Trek show. And you know that's hard to pull off. And they took something from the universe and explored it seriously, but it was also funny as hell. I was glad that they're both horny whales. You know, I please give me more of them.
Definitely,
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah, that to date, that tweet I did about Cetacean Ops is still my most popular tweet I've ever done. And I was saying something I thought like even most Trek fans knew, but I guess they forgot, or maybe I'm just in that corner of the internet where I think all the really hyper specific nerdy shit that was said in one line is just common knowledge. But yeah, I absolutely want to see more of Cetacean Ops, and we shall see. Yeah, as far as my favorite thing that was used in like one episode that I always like as a kid, it bugged me, but also as like I want to know more, was there was one episode of The Next Generation, I think it was season 6, called The Chase, where basically the premise of it was that some scientists had discovered that in all DNA scattered across the Milky Way, there are little fragments of code that actually translate to a message of some kind. And literally like every humanoid race scattered across the Milky Way, you know, Klingon, human, Cardassian, Romulan, all had different pieces of this message. And so the whole show, or the whole episode, was building to like all these really, really intense rival factions, like the of, you know, the Romulans, the Klingons, the Cardassians. They all had to come together to this one planet to assemble the pieces, the message together. Some of them thought it was going to be like a weapon. Some of them thought it was going to be like some, you know, a trick or something. And then at the very end of it, it turned out to be this message from like this progenitor, like precursor race from like millions of years ago that were like, hey, you're all our children. And we created all of you basically to live on where we could not. And, you know, you should all live in harmony. We hope everything is going great. And of course, you have all these people that were like ready to kill each other over this message. And then at the end of it, they all listen to the message, and then they're just like, wow, that was a trip. And then they just kind of like, let's never speak of this again. And then they walk and leave. And I'm like, wait, what? Because the whole episode was like, how are they going to get out of this? Like this completely transforms everything about what we know about Star Trek. And then they were just like, well, let's erase the logs and never talk about that again.
Yeah. I've never gotten along with my siblings. Let's get out of here.
Exactly. Yeah, like I think they literally had like a shot of the Cardassian look at the Klingon and just be like, ew. And then just we're related. Ugh.
Yeah. What about you, Jason?
Got anything?
I'm racking my brain. There's so many things, but I'm loving these. So move along.
All right.
Our first Star Wars reference of the night.
There we go. Thanks for bringing it up,
Move
Jason.
That's funny.
So, what would you guys? So this kind of went on for the chat. What's your favorite theme for the Star Treks? Like, do you guys have a favorite theme?
I mean, there's
It's
only
been a long
It's been
time.
a long
It had
Gotta
to
be
come
Enterprise.
up.
out of here. It's been a long road.
Okay.
Our time is finally here.
I got faith in her.
Such
I
a
will
good-
say
it's a
though,
bop.
like here's the thing though. It's like I understand why it was disturbing to a lot of fans, but just independent of that, just like in terms of what it's representing was just like sort of like that quasi, not quite country, but very like homespun, sort of like folksy, like soft rock kind of thing. It's a pretty good song. And there's a world where it could have maybe worked in some sort of spacefaring, like, if Firefly was made in the 90s, I think it could have worked just fine.
Mhm.
And I still like singing it. It's a fun song.
It's a fun, like, I love
It's
it.
a good trolling song. It's like getting
It is.
rickrolled in the Trek world, I think.
I'm waiting for the one episode of Lower Decks where it starts and it's not the Lower Decks theme. It's just Faith of the Heart. Like that'd be amazing. One day it'll happen.
If I can pull this off, so I'm working on a solo album right now, a jazz album that's all nerd music. And if I can pull this off without getting sued, I'm having a jazz medley of the Starfleet or the Star Trek themes, like a few of them, and I'm like singing the Star Trek themes like jazzy ways. Hopefully
Very cool.
Paramount doesn't come after me, but I'm gonna try and pull it off. We'll see. If not, I'll just put it up on the interweb for everyone to enjoy separately.
Are we, in terms of theme songs, are we allowed to pull from the movies too, or just the shows?
Yeah, I thought you pull from the movies.
I will say First Contact's theme is really good. I don't know if it's like it's the tippy top, but I could listen to it all day and be very moved by it. I think Alexander Courage's original score that became the TNG theme song, if you listen to it, like the one from the original movie soundtrack, it's a little bit drawn out a little bit more, and I actually like that version a skosh more than the one that was like hyper compressed for the TNG, like ba, 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 ba. But like if you do the,
you mean the one that they play in the motion picture every 37 seconds?
But specifically, there's one I'm thinking of. I think it's when they're coming into dry dock. Or space dock, and
the 2001 sequence.
Yes, where it's just like really elaborate, really indulgent, long, slow shots. It is somewhat moving, I think. Like if you just listen to, like, look at fans at home, look it up on Spotify, find that soundtrack and listen to that track and see if it doesn't stir your emotions a little bit. Just I played the French horn in high school, so anytime I hear those French horns anywhere, Voyager obviously is very big for me because that's the whole Voyager theme is French horns. But I think the muted trumpet of the First Contact theme, it's hard to beat in my opinion.
I love that theme song too, Aaron. I'm with you. I mean, I lovingly tease it for the long sequence, and yet I love it. Like I will watch it anytime. I think Deep Space Nine is probably my favorite theme.
Yeah,
it's like subtle, it's different, and it catches me. And like sometimes I tear up listening to it. I love it that much. But out of all the and that's also part of what I love so much about this franchise is the music. Wrath of Khan's score is so moving to me. I mean, especially I love the theme song, but it's the sequence when they're trying to outrun Reliant, and that it just always gets me. There's a march that happens when Spock realizes I got to go down there, and he knows what he's going to do. He knows, like, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to sacrifice my life. And there's a march that happens, and I tear up when I hear that. Not only when I'm high and I listen as I watch that movie, then I really ugly cry. But even when I'm just perfectly sober, like it's just that it gets me so much.
There is an up-tempo march in Wrath of Khan, and I think they use it in subsequent TOS movies as well, where it's like ba 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 ba.
Yep.
Ba, 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 ba. I love that. It's such a jaunty little tune, and every time they do it, Kirk and friends are up to something. They're gonna do something sneaky. They're doing something sneaky,
and they would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling cons.
That's when the good lines are the good zingers are gonna come out.
I used to love the Next Gen theme song, and then I used to have it as like my alarm to wake me up every morning. So now when I hear it, I'm like, oh, it gives you that. They always say never put a song that you love as your alarm, because it becomes that
Mm-hmm.
you hit snooze and you hear it like 20,000 times. Yeah, that's what happened.
So I think kind of like one of our last bits that we'll kind of go into is since Star Trek does have the movies, what's your favorite Star Trek movie? We'll go everything from motion picture to what was the last one?
Beyond.
Beyond?
Does that count?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll throw the
And-
JJs in there. We'll throw the
Just-
JJs in there.
Just on a side note, Galaxy Quest can't count, but it gets an honorary mention, I would say.
We did do back when we were the animation station, we did a favorite Star Trek episode, and I did have Galaxy Quest as my number 5.
I mean,
So it's really good.
It's
okay.
really wild to me that, by the way, I won't take up too much time, but Galaxy Quest, it was like the one thing that guy ever wrote. And then after that, he was like, all right, one and done. That was fun, writing movies. And it's like, what happened to your career, man? That's one of the greatest films ever made.
I'm going to go do car mechanics now.
I mean, but though it's one of those, you're like, well, you did it. That's one of those, like, it's okay to wipe your hands on that one and be like,
No,
done. We're
Yeah.
out. We
Go out on
did
top.
one thing and we're okay.
Here's my masterpiece. Doesn't get better than this. Have fun, everyone.
Yeah.
So sorry, what was the original question?
Favorite movie. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
We
I
can break
guess-
it up too if that's a little bit easier. We can break it up to TOS and Next Gen.
I think Wrath of Khan it's an easy answer, but for me, I think Voyage Home I could watch any time of the TOS era. I think of the TNG era movies. I think my mind always goes back to First Contact. It's like it's not a perfect film, but it has so much cool stuff going on in it that I always it will always have a special place for me. The line is drawn here. And then of the JJ movies, I think the original Star Trek 2009 is pretty solid.
It's funny that you mentioned First Contact, because that is the one that I think my buddy Oliver and I quote all the time. Like, it's got so many good bits in it. I mean, there's that one where Picard kills the Borg and is like ripping him open and it's like, this is instant lynch, and you're like, my goodness. Like, it's such a fun episode. The movie, not even episode. It's a good episode of Star Trek. That a bit long, better production value. Crazy. What about you, Bill?
Easy answer for me, and I know it's the obvious answer. Wrath of Khan. I fucking love that movie so much. It is probably one of the movies I've seen more than any other movie. There's a lot of great Star Trek movies in both, original series, next gen era, but that one is if it's on TV, I will watch it to the end. I cannot stop myself from doing it. I like it that much. And just across the board, the performances, the costume design, the music, it has big ideology behind it. It's personal. It has really cool science in it too. I cannot love that movie any more than I do.
It's got it all. You know what my favorite part of Wrath of Khan is? It's a very subtle little moment, but it's when he goes over to punch in the command to take down the shields, and he takes out those glasses and puts them on and almost looks embarrassed. That's my favorite part of the movie. I mean,
it's a moment of weakness.
Yes.
A moment of weakness in front of it, like at the worst moment when he's about to lose his whole crew. Like, God,
it's just like the most subtle little thing that ties the whole film together.
Yep. And it's the first time he's really admitting that weakness too. It's like owning that weakness is what strangely gives him the upper hand in that moment. Moment.
Yeah, like I'm gonna agree, like Aaron, that it's such a good bit there, like because he's like, you have to give me some time. We need time. Like the ship's busted up. You don't remember, you just like blew up half a deck. Like you got to give me some time.
Yeah, he's like using Khan's arrogance against him by prostrating himself in a way, but also you can see his little glibness of just sort of like, don't say anything, Bones.
Mm-hmm.
It's one other thing that I think speaks so well about this movie, and this is something I know a lot of Trek fans know, but some people don't always realize that Shatner and Montalban never are in a room together for that entire movie. That whole movie is screen to screen, and you feel that relationship so deeply in that movie. I think that speaks to how well it's directed, how well both of them acted in that movie. It's
from hell's heart. Stop it.
And it's got Moby Dick.
Yeah. Bill, what about Next Gen and JJ's?
I'm gonna probably follow Aaron's suit here. I love First Contact. It's such a good movie. I do have a soft spot for Generations, though it has some troubles in it. But even the really bad Star Trek movies still have stuff that I can't help but love in them.
It's like pizza. It's like pizza. Like even bad pizza, it's still pizza.
Yeah. Act 1 of Generations, though, I rewatched it a lot long ago. Like Act 1 is about as good as an Act 1 of any Star Trek movie you will ever watch. It has really, like, Generations has good stuff going on in it.
Yeah, just leave after intermission. You're good.
And talk about another unexplored corner of the universe. I want to see more of Sulu's daughter. We didn't really, get much after that. And of the JJ movies, the reboot, I thought it was great. Like, and I thought it made a smart decision to create a new timeline to bring Star Trek to a new, like, it's the only way to. It's going to piss off people who love original Star Trek, but it's the only way to. I could see to really have the freedom to tell a new story and for a new audience and bring new people into the franchise. So. The teaser of that movie is amazing. Like the moment before the credits, like when you see the ship going down, it's moving and exciting, and I really dug the 2009 movie.
Yeah.
What about you, Jason?
Well, I mean, Undiscovered Country is, the more we talk about The Wrath of Khan, the more I realize I think it's the best of all of the Trek movies. But that could just be nostalgia talking, of course. I've seen it the most out of all of them. Undiscovered Country is they're both directed by Nicholas Meyer, so I guess I'm a fan of his. But I would have to go back simply because I just love the story and the coolness of the Klingons in Undiscovered Country, and the whole idea of justice and being on trial. And but you know what, we mentioned Galaxy Quest. If there was, I would love a villain like Sarek who has no like. His honor has not been hurt, and he's got no, he's not have a vendetta. He's just a badass monster with heartless, and he just wants to take people over, and he just wants to destroy. I love Sarek in Galaxy Quest. I would love to have that kind of villain not, hey, you hurt my family and our generations, we've been clashing for years, and get rid of all that stuff. Just some guy who just wants to come in and just destroy everything. I would love to see that. That might be my new favorite movie. But Undiscovered Country for sure.
Nice.
And your Next Gen and your JJ?
Oh.
That's like the hurt.
I'm in the same
hurt.
mode. I'm like trying to think back.
Insurrection and Beyond.
The favorite of the JJ movies? Is that what you said?
Oh, your favorite Next Gen and your favorite JJ.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You know, the thing that we've been doing this entire time
Yeah,
that you've not been paying attention to. That's cool.
First Contact, for sure, because I love Alice Krieg.
Yeah, she does an amazing job as the Borg Queen.
And I worked on a show. Again, I'm just mine is all however many degrees from. I worked with Todd Masters, he's got Masters FX, and they work on a whole bunch of movies. Anyways, he was part of the making of the Borg Queen. And I spent like 4 hours in the trailer working on some stuff with him, but he talked the whole time about how that movie was made. And if you know me, that's my happy place. Tell me all the behind the scenes stuff. So First Contact for sure, because I can watch it and go, oh, that's how they did that. It's so cool. And then JJ, the first one for sure. Into Darkness, the whole shooting from one ship to the other, that was cool. And I didn't finish Beyond. I got to a point where I went, no.
The best part's the ending.
Again, I didn't. Yeah, I keep missing the best part.
I'm glad you brought up Alice Krieg because I had a weird messed up crush on the Borg Queen.
It is weird.
So did Data.
No judgments here.
You and Data, you're in good company.
She's hot.
Oh,
When like half of her, that's hot.
Yeah, when it's just like her wiggly spine going into like the thing, like that's just like, man.
whatever tickles your fancy.
I guess.
What about you, Bonnie?
So I'm probably gonna just follow suit. I love A Voyage Home. I love Star Trek 4. Oh my gosh. Wrath of Khan. It's perfect in its own way. But Voyage Home. I'm such a comedy nerd. The fact that it's Star Trek and it makes me laugh out loud. It checks all my boxes. As for the Next Gen, First Contact, you can't beat it. It's fantastic. I love Data's journey in that. Again, he's one of my favorite characters. So to see him kind of have his journey through that movie as well makes me happy. And again, with the new reboot, as much as I love Benedict Cumberbatch, it's gotta be the first one, to the 2009. Just because I get what they were trying to do with when they rebooted the Khan story, but you just can't fix perfection. Like don't fix it if it's not broken. That's what I always say. Like that, it's the same thing as when someone tells me they're going to remake The Princess Bride. I'm like, no, you don't fix perfection. And I think Wrath of Khan is just kind of a perfect movie. You don't have to fix it. So, but I still love you, Benedict Cumberbatch.
Jaiden.
Well, I have to agree. I also love The Voyage Home. It was hilarious. One of the movies that I bonded over with my best friend. And I don't think I've seen any of the Next Generation movies, as I have not seen all of them.
You're in for a treat. Well,
I know.
You're in for a journey. A treat.
Yeah, you're in for a journey. Is what it is.
Journey of treats, if you will.
But everyone does keep recommending First Contact, and Data is my favorite character ever in Star Trek as well. So I'm really looking forward to watching that one. I've got even more hyped hearing everybody talk about it.
Yeah.
And then out of the JJs, I have to agree with also the first one. I've seen all three of those, but I feel like the third one felt the least Star Trekky. Like I felt like I was watching Guardians of the Galaxy with that one. It was very action packed and like it was very different. Like tonally, it felt very, very different to the other ones. But yeah, I like the first one.
I think it was the Beastie Boys behind
Yeah.
the dirt bike in the trailer.
Yeah.
A little bit of sabotage is great, but yeah.
So
that's the funny thing about all the movies, though, is like even the so-called worst ones, there's something fun in it that I can think of in every movie that I'm like, I'm glad that I watched this movie just for that, you know. Like Insurrection, I'm sure it doesn't hold up, but I remember being delighted as a teenager when they had to sing Gilbert and Sullivan with Data to make him go
little
on
HMS Pinafore, yeah.
Yes, because he was going crazy because he was too moral. His moral circuits had gone offline because he saw something so heinous that he just started going crazy, and they had to talk him off a ledge by singing Gilbert and Sullivan at him. Oh my God, I love that. Inject it into my veins.
If we never had Star Trek 5, we wouldn't have the music video Captain Kirk is climbing a mountain. And
It's
if
true.
you haven't seen
my
that,
God.
Yeah.
Google that and you're welcome.
That's another movie where I feel like the problem with it was like, I think it was just trying to do too much.
Mhm.
And so like it wound up feeling like 3 disjointed movies, but like if you section out like a third of Star Trek 5 and it's just like this cool, like sort of almost like Dune-esque, like sand rebellion, like planet that was supposed to be the planet of peace. I'm like, that's dope. I want to see a movie about that. The same with like they go to a planet where they think they found the Garden of Eden, or this sort of the root of all religion across all alien empires. What an awesome Star Trek idea!
Totally awesome. Yeah.
Like that could have been 3 movies.
I love how we're not calling it by its real name. We're just calling it Star Trek 5. It's like,
Yeah.
Yes,
It's the only one that
Sorry,
doesn't
it's-
get its real name. Like
Well,
you
it's
get the
the Final
motion picture, and then
Frontier,
it's
right?
just like
Yeah.
that
So
one's
wait,
just like Star Trek 5. Star Trek 5.
I snorted.
It is funny that no one brings up Star Trek 5 as their favorite, which is sad. It's not. But I'm definitely I'm pretty much in the same vein with the first 2. So I mean, definitely Wrath of Khan. Just the cool, like when they're in the nebula and you've got the cool submarine shots going. Just the I almost said Botany Bay. That's not the name of the ship.
Reliant.
The Reliant and the Enterprise
Botany Bay
just
was-
doing their
was-
little
was-
stuff. Like I thought that was really cool. They can't see each other. That's just nifty. But I mean, 4 is really good. 4 is definitely, I think, the funniest of those.
Yes.
I mean, it's like,
Yes.
especially when they're asking, when Seventh Heaven Mom is like, "Do you guys like Italian?" And that whole bit with her is like, "No, yes,
Yes.
no." It's like,
No.
Yeah.
yes. Like
He did a lot of LDS back in the
Just-
60s.
Just them cutting to him in the tank with the whale, trying to mind meld with I died. I was like, what is that?
I
Spoilers
love that.
again, I guess.
But the way they did it too is like Kirk was just he like turned and be like Spock was like, "Spock, where'd you go?" And he's
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the tank with the
Yeah.
whales. Oh,
Yeah. It's just so good. It's just the bits. And then I've always loved the relationship between Spock and Bones. And I feel like in that movie, after we lose Spock and then we get him back, it's like, it just starts, it's like Bones trying to like wake him up almost by just being mean to him again. But Spock isn't giving what he wants back. So he gets upset and he just keeps
Yeah.
poking him. Yeah.
getting to do what he wants. I mean,
nuclear vessels.
That scene. The nuclear vessels.
Yeah.
Where
I'll
are
definitely-
your nuclear vessels?
Definitely gonna go with a First Contact. Even though Insurrection does have that cute little furry hamster 6-legged thing that the kid plays with, which I was like, man, that'd be cool to have one of those. Do those exist? Can I get one of those? But I liked Beyond. Like, I think that, like, to me, like, completely opposite of Jaiden, that one seemed the most Star Trek. No. I'm just going like that one seemed to me the most like a Star Trek episode. I don't know why. Mainly because they like to crash land on planets a lot. Like,
No, I
we-
mean
we
you're,
do
you're
like
not
to do. We
wrong.
like to blow up our
Yeah.
ship
Yeah,
a
you're-
lot.
You're
It's
not
a-
wrong,
it's a-
but you're wrong. No, I'm just kidding.
You're absolutely right. The whole episode was essentially an away mission, which I think is why it got through, because it was sort of like, all right, maybe let's not do like the whole galaxy is ending storyline. Let's try to do something more contained, which is, I think that was, I'm blanking on his name, the writer and the guy who played Scotty in the movies.
Simon Pegg.
Simon
Simon Pegg.
Oh, I
Simon
love
Pegg's,
him.
whole pitch was like,
Yeah.
let's just do what would be a classic Trek away mission as a whole movie.
And just like every other episode of Star Trek, they kill half the crew. Because I mean, it's not a Star Trek movie unless you kill like 90% of the crew.
So look forward to that on Strange New Worlds.
Which is going to be crazy because we only got like 7 people. So
Oh man,
What,
it's a really
episode,
short series.
each episode they off one character.
Oh no.
It's gonna be fun. Get ready for that. Paramount loves it. That was
It'll be lots
Aaron's
of
what a
fun.
big pitch. Be like, I want us to kill one member of the crew. Like, because see, here's the thing. Like, it's one of those, like, if you kill a kid in like an animation, you're probably gonna win an Emmy. So it's like here we're giving ourselves like a bunch of chances to win an Emmy here. So they're going hardcore.
I mean, it's like Russian roulette here with the episode. Every episode, he's like, "Who's gonna go next?" You know.
Like, really, we only have D. Bradley Baker for one episode. You guys figure that one out.
Whoa.
Yeah, Prodigy. It's basically a whole new crew every other episode. It's crazy.
Season
and
two's
just
gonna be
Murph.
wild.
Murph is the only survivor.
Murph is the only survivor.
Oh, guys,
He's
this was
gonna-
fun. We need
Is Murph like a gelatinous blob? Does he just absorb everybody at the end of
Yes.
the pilot?
Yeah.
Yeah, he eats them all, absorbs their memories. That's his secret.
We need to do another one of these. It was super fun, just chatting some Trekness.
Mhm.
Where can everybody find you guys social media wise, and when your shows start? Everybody but Bill, he doesn't get to tell us. His is still under wraps. Let's start with Bonnie.
Okay. Hello, everyone. You can find me all over the interwebs at Bonnie Bell G, or just search my name. I'm easy to find. And watch Star Trek Prodigy on October 28th. Or if this comes out after, watch it in the past and in the future on Paramount Plus. And if you want to check out my comedy band, it's at Library Bards. Hey, we have Star Trek songs. Check it out.
That is awesome.
Yeah, this episode comes out on November 1st, so you can
So
you
in the
have
past-
watched the first episode of.
Watch the pilot.
Yeah.
Doodle-doodle-doodle-doodle-doodle.
What about you, Aaron?
So my plugs are going to look a lot like Bonnie's. So yeah, you can find me at Good Aaron. That's GOODAARON on all social medias. Twitter and Instagram are the ones where I'm probably the most active. And yeah, I'll plug Star Trek Prodigy as well. If you're listening to this right when the podcast comes out, that would be November 1st. The pilot will be out, and we're doing a 10 episode drop, or not all at once, but weekly. Sparceled out into the new year. So check it out. You'll probably enjoy it quite a bit, and watch it. We're making it for the whole family, so young and old should be able to enjoy it together. If you're new to Trek, it's intentionally designed to help guide you into it, so you can catch all of these amazing references we've been making for the past hour and a half. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Jason.
Yeah. Oh. I am looking at
Jason forgot we're doing a podcast for a second.
I love that Jason.
I think he
just,
was
like,
I think he was rewatching Star Trek 5. He's like, wait, what?
That's what I
You
love
did some
about
God
Jason.
stuff
Like,
in that?
Jason's on our show, but he's
What?
not on our show. That's what I love about it.
I was looking at Library Birds.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Aw,
Love
Acceptable.
the poster. Love the picture.
Thank you.
Yes, you can find me on Twitter. Prepare to be underwhelmed at aboysimpson.com, at aboysimpson, and Instagram at Simpstagrams.
Oh, that's cute.
And your show.
What's that?
Your show.
Oh, yeah, we're working on season 4 of The Dragon Prince.
Woo!
Very happy to be doing that, and that'll be out when it's out. That's the number one question I've been asked probably my whole life. When is season 4? So it's coming. We're doing our best, so looking forward to it.
Nice. And it's the Emmy Award winning. You should refer to it by its
Sorry.
full title, the Emmy Award winning.
Sorry, yeah,
Show.
Emmy Award winning The Dragon Prince.
There you go.
Thanks.
Bill.
Well, I have to just geek out for a second with Bonnie and Aaron here. I'm so excited for Prodigy. Genuinely excited for Prodigy. I cannot wait for it.
Thank you.
I will be writing you guys fan mail.
It's so fun.
Angry fan.
It looks amazing, and it's. I'm excited that there's so many awesome people working on it. That it seems so cool. So it's from the bottom of my heart. I cannot wait.
Well, likewise for Strange New Worlds. When
Yes.
we have a premiere date.
I mean, it's a 100% mutual feeling. I kind of geeked out a little when I saw that you were joining, and I was like, oh.
I've read all the episodes. Your episodes are very good, Bill.
Oh, thank you.
I have not, and I feel like I also need an opinion on this. So if you want to send them to my private inbox, I would be more than happy to give my personal opinion.
We don't know exactly
That's
when
a no.
I'm going to send you some fan mail, Bonnie. And maybe there's a script in there. I don't know.
I'm totally in.
We don't know when it's going to come out yet, but it will come out soon, ish, at a star date, to be determined. My Twitter handle is Flying Lobster. It's actually flying_lobster. Apparently there's another flying lobster before me, so I had to put an underscore in there.
Oh no.
And I've had that handle for a long time. I used to be a lobster mascot for the LA roller derby, and that was when I adopted the flying lobster handle. And I had a flying helmet on.
How was that such a casual comment?
Yeah, back in the day when I was a lobster.
because that would have been the whole podcast if he had
Let's go back. Rewind. We're gonna redo this. We're gonna start with. You should start with this, Bill.
Yeah, totally start with that.
One of my past lives, I spent a lot of time with the LA roller derby, the Derby dolls. And I'm also on Instagram. I'm not on Instagram as much, but I'm there at Bill Wears Ties. So that's my handle there.
So do we. For you, Bill. For you.
So yes, that's where I can be found.
Nice. What about you, Jaiden?
So I have the same handle on everything. Pretty simple. I'm Pixel Latte. It's PIIXELATTE. I got that nickname from like a combination of being a digital artist, and also I worked at Starbucks for a long time. So it's like a little pun, like pixel latte instead of pixelated. So that's my little handle. Yeah.
Nice. And we'll put everybody's links and everything in the show notes so you can check those out. So everything will be there. So you can click on everybody, do your follows. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Josh L. Kane. You can find the podcast on Instagram at What's Up Fandom, on Twitter at What's Up Fandom PC for podcasts. All of our episodes available wherever you can download a podcast. So iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, Google Play, Spotify. We have all of our this content, video content on our YouTube channel, which is What's Up Fandom, and on our website, animationstationpodcast.com. Thanks to Wild Bills for the sponsoring this episode. Yeah. There you go. Got a plate.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Should do a whole thing like
that's all the security. That's all security. Oh,
there's part of me that wants to just like replace all of my plates with just like Star Trek commemorative plates, and I think that would be amazing.
They are very toxic. You cannot eat all of them.
Yeah, I feel like.
Never mind. It's not.
Can I say something very quickly, Josh? Can I say something very quickly?
Yeah.
20 years ago, just out of film school, I was working on this movie. I was just playing an extra in the background. I was walking to set on the streets of Vancouver, where I'm from, East Vancouver.
The mean streets of Vancouver.
The mean streets of Vancouver. There's a guy sitting in a doorway on the street, and he's like, it's change. You got some change. And I don't think I had any. I was with my wife. You got some change, and he kind of burped. Blah. And we're like, I'm so sorry. And we walked upstairs, and we were in the green room in this hotel. 30 minutes later, this guy walks in. And it was Rene Aubergenois, who plays this homeless man in the movie. But he walked. Just seeing that plate reminded me how incredible this man was.
So he was putting you on. He was
putting me on. Oh yes.
Wow.
Amazing.
But he walked in and he was just the most lovely, incredible human. I forgot how much I loved him as Odo until I saw that plate. So thank you for reminding me.
He was so good.
Yeah. Sorry, Josh.
Just in the middle of our product sponsor pitch, but whatever. Wild Bills loves it.
Awesome. Wild Bills
You
are
can
awesome.
use code FandomTid at checkout to get 10% off your purchase. And thanks to 1 out of 10 for the intro and outro for this episode, which you can't hear here just because there you go. But yeah, so thanks for them. They're touring right now in SoCal, so give them a listen. And they're on Spotify, 1 out of 10. Guys, thank you all, and ladies, thank you all so much for coming on. I do appreciate it. I will say there was ulterior motives. The only reason I wanted you on here is so I could hopefully Paramount pays attention and I can get some of those cool Star Trek boxes with all the swag.
I
That's
still
really the
haven't.
only
I haven't
reason
gotten one either. I mean, yeah, we all want them.
Like Paramount, get on that because I'm just saying. Those Discovery boxes come with cool booze and stuff like that. Like that's super dope stuff. And I'm sure the Strange New Worlds one gonna come up with booze too.
Mm-hmm.
Like
And that's
booze
what-
and maybe a gun because I mean it's
Strange
gonna
new
be a
booze.
dark series.
That's exactly what you want me to. You want me to be drinking booze when I live tweet the episodes. This is,
Can't wait for that.
my wit exceeds expectations when I'm on whiskey or blood wine.
I think I have paid for almost all of my Star Trek swag,
Yeah.
including my many journals, which are all captain's logs.
Oh, cool.
I mean,
Cool.
had to do the just in case it was one of those just in case Bill wasn't
Here we go.
here. Like I was going to.
We're getting a show.
We're getting it's a show that you didn't pay for, nor would you want to.
Like and subscribe, everybody.
the
Like
Rito
and
show.
subscribe.
Gotta support the best show right now, the best of the Star Treks that currently just ended like a week ago. So I guess we're okay with that. But thank you all again so much for coming on. This was super fun. Last question: who is your favorite Savick? Yeah, to piss off everyone in the world. It's like, who was your favorite Savick?
Wow.
I mean,
James,
is there a right
is
answer?
Pretty good.
I mean, I think there's the right answer.
I mean, I'm going to say Robin Curtis.
Always Robin Curtis.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it's
It was the eyebrows, man. It was the eyebrows with Robin Curtis.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I mean,
for reasons.
I will say just on a purely performance level, I lean towards Kirstie Alley. I will say nothing else than that.
Well said.
There you go.
I'll just
All
plead the fifth.
That works too. That works too. All right. So for What's Up Fandom, I'm Josh.
I'm
Jason.
Jaden.
I'm.
And I'm Aaron.
I was like,
I'm Bill.
It worked out so well. Bye, everybody.
Just like rehearsal.
I guess live long and prosper. I
Live
guess
long
we
and
do that. Is
prosper.
that how you're supposed to end
Yes.
Star Trek podcasts and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
May the great river of wealth forever flow in your direction. I think that's a Ferengi thing. All right.
All
Our
right.
mind to your minds.
All right.
Thoughts
Bye,
to you,
everybody.
I'm not the leading authority on waxing poetic or using big words. But this writer is my philosophy about living in such a world, yeah. You and I got a life to live, so what's the point?